Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Duolingo English Test practice channel. Today, we're going to explain a question type called interactive writing. Let's start by looking at the exam format. Here we can see the interface you'll use during the test. As mentioned in our previous introductory lesson, the interactive writing section assesses candidates' literacy and production skills. Starting July 1st, 2024, Duolingo has added separate scores for listening, speaking, reading, and writing abilities in their test reports. Consequently, you'll be able to see your specific writing score in the subscores section. Regarding time limits, this section is divided into two steps. In the first step, you'll have up to 5 minutes to complete a short essay. After submitting it, you'll move on to step 2, where you'll have a maximum of 3 minutes to answer a follow-up question. This question will be randomly generated by AI based on the first prompt and your response. Now that we've covered the format, let's go over some quick tips to help you tackle the interactive writing questions. You should make the most of this time to showcase your best writing abilities. While it's important to stay on topic and use correct English, don't be afraid to provide a comprehensive answer. Feel free to employ various writing techniques to enhance your response and make it more engaging. As you write, you can refer to the section's writing guidelines for additional support. Once you've completed the initial writing phase, you'll have a chance to review what you've written before moving on. This is crucial, so take advantage of it. Finally, before you submit your work, double-check everything carefully. Make sure you're completely satisfied with your answer and that it's polished and ready for submission. Only then should you proceed to the next section. Remember, thorough proofreading is essential, so don't rush to hit that next button until you're absolutely certain your response is complete and up to your highest standards. Next, let's look at the classification of interactive writing questions. Based on our analysis, the questions can be divided into 3 main categories: descriptive questions, argumentative questions, and comparative questions. It's important to note that interactive writing questions are divided into 2 parts, and all questions often include one or both of these types. In the following videos, we'll discuss strategies for tackling each of these 3 categories. First, let's focus on the argumentative questions in the interactive writing section. When crafting a Duolingo English Test discussion essay, you have 2 effective templates to choose from. Each offers a structured approach to presenting your argument clearly and persuasively. Template 1 emphasizes a balanced perspective. You begin by acknowledging an opposing viewpoint, then asserting your own stance. This approach demonstrates your ability to consider multiple angles. You'll then justify your position with solid reasoning, provide a concrete example to illustrate your point, and conclude by reaffirming your stance while acknowledging the counterargument. Template 2 takes a more direct approach. You start by clearly stating your viewpoint, then back it up with a primary reason or rationale. To strengthen your argument, you'll offer a specific example or piece of evidence. The essay concludes by reinforcing your initial stance, tying everything together. Both templates guide you through a logical progression of ideas, ensuring your essay is well-structured and convincing. The choice between them may depend on the specific prompt or your personal writing style. Whichever you choose, these templates provide a solid foundation for articulating your thoughts effectively in the DT discussion essay format. Notice that we consistently use 2 colors to highlight these templates. The blue sections are ready-to-use template sentences, while the red parts can be freely replaced according to the specific question. Feel free to pause this video and take a screenshot to save these template sentences for future reference. Now that we've covered these template sentences, let's look at the following example question. Some think that people are never satisfied with what they have. They always want something more or different. Do you agree or disagree? Why? Give specific reasons for your answer. Here's how we can approach this question. This sample answer effectively demonstrates the use of template 1 from our previous discussion. Let's break it down. The response begins with a balanced view. While some might argue that people are constantly dissatisfied and seeking more, I believe that contentment is achievable, and many individuals are satisfied with what they have. This opening acknowledges the opposing viewpoint before presenting the writer's stance. The writer then justifies their position. This is mainly due to the fact that true happiness often stems from non-material aspects of life, such as meaningful relationships, personal growth, and a sense of purpose. This explanation provides clear reasons for the writer's belief in achievable contentment. An illustrative example follows. A notable example is the story of the philosopher Diogenes, who lived a simple life in a barrel and found contentment in his pursuit of wisdom and self-sufficiency. This historical reference strengthens the argument by providing a concrete instance of finding satisfaction with little. Finally, the response concludes by reinforcing the main argument. In conclusion, despite the notion that people are never satisfied, I believe that contentment is possible when individuals prioritize the non-material aspects of life that bring them true fulfillment. This sample answer demonstrates a well-structured response that effectively uses the template to present a clear, balanced, and well-supported argument. Next comes the follow-up question, which is step 2 of the interactive writing section. The follow-up response demonstrates the use of template 2, providing a nice contrast to the initial answer. Let's examine how this response builds upon the previous discussion while utilizing a different structure. The writer begins with a clear stance. I firmly believe that personal achievements can lead to both satisfaction and further desire for success. This direct opening aligns with template 2's approach of starting with a strong viewpoint. The response then elaborates with a primary reason. One primary reason for this is that accomplishments often provide a sense of fulfillment and boost self-confidence, which can motivate individuals to strive for even greater goals. This explanation bridges the concepts of contentment and ambition discussed in the initial response. An illustrative example follows. For instance, an athlete who wins a championship may feel a strong sense of satisfaction, but this success might also ignite a desire to win more titles and break records. This example effectively demonstrates how achievement can simultaneously satisfy and motivate. The conclusion reinforces the initial stance. Therefore, personal achievements can serve as a double-edged sword, bringing both contentment and a renewed hunger for further success. This closing statement synthesizes the ideas presented and ties back to the original question about satisfaction and the desire for more. This follow-up response complements the initial answer by exploring how personal achievements interact with contentment and ambition. It maintains a cohesive discussion while showcasing a different structural approach, demonstrating versatility in addressing related aspects of the topic. Remember, the best way to master these templates is through practice. So, make sure to do plenty of exercises to get comfortable using these template sentences. Again, feel free to pause this video and take screenshots of these sample answers for your reference and study. We know that vocabulary complexity is also a key factor in the writing score. Therefore, we're providing the following vocabulary enhanced version templates. Using these templates can help increase your vocabulary score and boost your overall writing section performance. This enhanced version of the DT discussion essay structure focuses on elevating the language and sophistication of responses. In Template 1, more advanced phrasing is now utilized, with the balanced view beginning, though there are those who advocate for. To introduce a more formal tone. Justify your position becomes justify your position with a complex argument, encouraging more nuanced reasoning. The example introduction changes to a particularly salient example of this is for added emphasis and sophistication, while the conclusion now employs in summation and the weight of evidence suggests for a more scholarly and measured tone. Template 2 also receives a vocabulary boost, starting with it is incontrovertible that for a stronger, more assertive opening. Reasons are introduced as the primary impetus for this perspective stems from adding depth and complexity. Examples are prefaced with consider, for instance, sounding more engaging and thoughtful, and the conclusion uses hence for a more formal tone. These upgrades aim to demonstrate higher language proficiency and critical thinking, encouraging test takers to use more sophisticated vocabulary and sentence structures. However, it's crucial to use these advanced phrases naturally and appropriately within the essay context. For test takers aiming for higher writing scores, such as those targeting 120 points or above, you might want to consider using these template sentences. Feel free to pause this video and take a screenshot to save these templates for future reference. Now, let's take a look at how to effectively use these template sentences. The sample responses in this slide demonstrate how to effectively use the templates for constructing sophisticated discussion essays. For the first question, Template 1 is applied. The response begins with, though there are those who advocate for the idea that people are never satisfied and constantly crave more, acknowledging the opposing viewpoint. It then states the writer's position. My conviction lies firmly in the belief that contentment is attainable. The reasoning is introduced with, this belief originates primarily from, followed by an explanation about non-material aspects of life leading to fulfillment. A detailed example is provided with. A particularly salient example of this is the story of the ancient Greek philosopher Diogenes, illustrating the point about finding contentment through non-material pursuits. The response concludes by summarizing the argument, acknowledging the opposing view, and reinforcing the main stance. For the follow-up question, template 2 is utilized. It starts assertively with, it is incontrovertible that personal achievements can lead to both satisfaction and further desire for success. The sophisticated reason is introduced with, the primary impetus for this perspective stems from, followed by an explanation about how accomplishments affect self-confidence and motivation. A compelling example is provided, prefaced by consider, for instance, an athlete who wins a championship, demonstrating how achievements can lead to both satisfaction and renewed ambition. The response concludes firmly with, hence, personal achievements can serve as a double-edged sword, restating the main point. These examples showcase how the templates can be adapted to different questions while maintaining a high level of language sophistication and argument structure. That concludes our explanation of argumentative questions. Now, let's move on to descriptive questions. First, let's learn the template sentences for answering these questions. This template provides a structured approach for answering descriptive essay questions in the DT exam. Let's break down how to use this template. Opening description. Begin by introducing the situation or event you'll be describing. Use the phrase, the situation that I encountered which is worth describing is, to set the scene. Then, explain why this experience was significant to you. Specific actions or reactions. Next, describe how you responded to the situation. Use faced with specific challenge or situation, your response method. This allows you to detail your initial reaction. Follow up by explaining what motivated your approach. Detailed process and outcome. Here, you'll elaborate on the steps you took to handle the situation. Start with, to manage the situation, specific actions taken. Then, describe how these actions played out over time and what results or changes occurred. Conclusion and lessons. Wrap up your essay by reflecting on what you learned from this experience. Use, as a result, I learned lessons from the experience. Finally, offer advice or recommendations for others who might face similar challenges. This template helps ensure your descriptive essay is well-structured, detailed, and reflective. It guides you through describing the situation, your actions, the outcomes, and the lessons learned, providing a comprehensive response to the question. Let's continue with the explanation of the next template. This second template for the DT descriptive essay structure offers a slightly different approach to organizing your response. Let's break down how to use template 2. Opening description. Begin with reflecting on described situation or event. I realize its significance lies and explain its importance. This opening immediately puts the situation in context and highlights its relevance, encouraging a more reflective tone from the start. Specific actions or reactions. Use confronted with specific challenge or situation, your response method driven by motivating factors. This structure allows you to concisely describe the challenge, your response, and your motivation in a single sentence. Detailed process and outcome. Start with managing the situation, specific actions taken. Then, follow up with these efforts led to describe results and changes. This approach focuses on the actions you took and their direct consequences. Conclusion and lessons. Conclude with, from this, I learned lessons from the experience. I recommend provide suggestions for others in similar situations. This final part not only summarizes what you learned but also offers advice to others, demonstrating your ability to apply your experience more broadly. This template encourages a more reflective and analytical approach to describing your experience, while still maintaining a clear structure. It guides you to think deeply about the significance of the event, your actions, the outcomes, and the lessons learned, all while providing practical advice based on your experience. You can pause this video and take a screenshot to save these templates. Next, let's look at a sample question. Describe a time when you had to adapt to a new situation or environment. What happened and how did you adapt? Include specific details in your answer. Let's try using template 1 to respond. This sample answer effectively demonstrates how to apply Template 1 to a specific descriptive essay question. Let's break down how the template is used. Opening description. The response begins with, "The situation that I encountered, which is worth describing, is moving to a new country for college." It then explains the significance. "This experience was significant because it forced me to step out of my comfort zone and adapt to unfamiliar surroundings." Specific actions or reactions. The answer uses the phrase, "Faced with the challenges of living in a foreign culture, I embraced an open and proactive mindset." It then explains the motivation. "My approach was driven by a desire to immerse myself fully in the new environment and make the most of this learning opportunity." Detailed process and outcome. The response describes specific actions taken. To manage the situation, I actively sought out opportunities to engage with locals, join student organizations, and learn the language. It then details the results. Over time, these efforts helped me build a strong network of friends, gain a deeper understanding of the culture, and feel more at home in my new setting. Conclusion and lessons. The essay concludes with, "As a result, I learned the importance of being adaptable, keeping an open mind, and proactively engaging with new experiences." It then offers advice. For anyone facing similar challenges, I recommend embracing the discomfort, seeking out support from others, and viewing the experience as an opportunity for personal growth and development. This sample answer demonstrates how the template can be effectively used to structure a coherent, detailed, and reflective response to a descriptive essay question while ensuring all key points are addressed. Next, let's see how Template 2 can be used to answer a follow-up question. This follow-up response effectively demonstrates the use of Template 2 to answer the question about the most important lesson learned from the experience. Let's break down how the template is applied. Opening description. The response begins with, "Reflecting on adapting to a new country for college, I realize its significance lies in the personal growth it facilitated." This immediately connects the follow-up to the original experience and highlights its importance. Specific actions or reactions. The answer uses, "Confronted with the unfamiliarity of a foreign culture, I embraced an open mindset driven by a desire to learn and grow." This concisely describes the challenge, the response, and the motivation behind it. Detailed process and outcome. The response states, "Managing the situation, I actively engaged with locals and immersed myself in the culture." It then describes the results. "These efforts led to a stronger sense of belonging and adaptability." Conclusion and lessons. The essay concludes with, "From this, I learned the power of stepping out of one's comfort zone. I recommend embracing discomfort and seeking new experiences for others in similar situations." This follow-up response demonstrates how Template 2 can be used to create a concise yet comprehensive answer that reflects on the experience, emphasizes the key lesson learned, and offers advice to others. It maintains a cohesive connection with the original response while focusing on the specific question about the most important lesson learned. By using this template, the response effectively summarizes the experience, highlights its significance, and provides valuable insights in a structured and reflective manner, all within the constraints of a brief follow-up answer. Similarly, we provide an enhanced vocabulary version of the templates for you to use. Let's start with the first upgraded vocabulary template. This enhanced version of Template 1 for the DT descriptive essay structure focuses on elevating the vocabulary and phrasing to demonstrate a higher level of language proficiency. Let's break down the key improvements. Opening description. The phrase, "a memorable challenge I encountered," replaces the previous, "the situation that I encountered." The term pivotal is used instead of significant, showcasing more sophisticated vocabulary. Specific actions or reactions. The template now uses "I opted to" rather than simply "I," encouraging the use of more precise verbs. The phrase "this choice was driven by" adds complexity to the sentence structure. Detailed process and outcome. To address this issue replaces "to manage the situation," providing a more formal tone. The addition of "gradually" in "these efforts gradually led to" adds nuance to the description of the outcome. Conclusion and lessons. Ultimately, "I gleaned" is used instead of "as a result, I learned," demonstrating a more advanced vocabulary. The phrase "for those facing similar issues" replaces "for anyone facing similar challenges," creating a slightly more formal tone. This vocabulary-enhanced version encourages test takers to use more sophisticated language throughout their essay. It maintains the same clear structure as the original template, but pushes candidates to demonstrate a higher level of English proficiency. This can potentially lead to higher scores in language use and vocabulary range, while still ensuring that the essay remains well-organized and addresses all key points of the question. Let's move on to the second upgraded vocabulary template. This enhanced version of Template 2 for the DT descriptive essay structure further elevates the vocabulary and phrasing to showcase an even higher level of language proficiency. Let's break down the key improvements. Opening description. The phrase "upon reflecting on" replaces the previous "reflecting on," adding a more formal tone. "I recognized its critical importance" is used instead of "I realize its significance lies in," demonstrating more sophisticated vocabulary and structure. Specific actions or reactions. When challenged by replaces confronted with, offering a more nuanced way to introduce the challenge. "My response was to" is used instead of "I," encouraging a more precise description of actions. Influenced by replaces driven by, adding variety to the language. Detailed process and outcome. In managing the situation, I took steps such as provides a more formal and detailed way to introduce specific actions. This approach resulted in replaces these efforts led to, offering a more sophisticated way to describe outcomes. Conclusion and lessons. The phrase "this experience taught me" is used instead of "from this, I learned," maintaining a formal tone. "I would advise others in similar predicaments" replaces "I recommend," introducing more advanced vocabulary with predicaments and a more formal advisory tone. This vocabulary-enhanced version of Template 2 encourages test takers to use even more sophisticated language throughout their essay. It maintains the same clear structure as the original template, but pushes candidates to demonstrate an advanced level of English proficiency. This can potentially lead to higher scores in language use, vocabulary range, and overall writing quality, while ensuring that the essay remains well-organized and addresses all key points of the question. You can pause the video to take screenshots and save these upgraded template sentences. Next, let's explain how to use these advanced template sentences. We'll look at how to answer the previous question using them. These sample answers demonstrate how to effectively use the vocabulary-enhanced templates 1 and 2 to create sophisticated responses. Let's break down each answer. Main response, using Template 1. The answer begins with "a memorable challenge I encountered was moving to a new country for college," immediately setting the scene. It then explains why this was pivotal, using advanced phrasing. The specific actions are introduced with "faced with the challenges of navigating a foreign culture, I opted to approach the situation with an open mind and a proactive attitude." The motivating factors are clearly stated. The detailed process is described using the template structure. To address this issue, I actively sought out chances to interact with locals. The outcomes are then explained. Using these efforts gradually led to. The conclusion uses "ultimately, I gleaned," and provides recommendations as suggested by the template. Follow-up response, using Template 2. This response begins with "upon reflecting on moving to a new country for college," closely following the template. It then recognizes the critical importance of the experience. The specific challenge and response are described using the template structure. When challenged by the unfamiliarity of a foreign culture, my response was to adopt an open and proactive mindset. The detailed process and outcome section follows the template closely. In managing the situation, I took steps such as actively interacting with locals. The conclusion uses the suggested phrasing, "this experience taught me," and "I would advise others in similar predicaments to." Both responses demonstrate how these enhanced templates can be used to create well-structured, sophisticated answers that showcase advanced vocabulary and complex sentence structures while thoroughly addressing the questions. The use of these templates helps ensure that the responses are coherent, detailed, and reflective, which are key qualities in high-scoring DT essays. That concludes our explanation of descriptive questions. Next, let's move on to the final section, which covers how to answer comparative questions. First, let's look at the template sentences for answering these questions. This template provides a clear structure for answering DT comparison essay questions. Let's break down each component. You start by clearly stating your preference for option A and briefly explaining why. which sets the tone for your essay and immediately presents your main argument. Next, you elaborate on your preference by providing a detailed explanation of your first reason for choosing option A, allowing you to delve deeper into your argument. The template then suggests providing a contrasting viewpoint, demonstrating your ability to consider multiple perspectives. You acknowledge the opposing view B and explain its merits, but then reinforce why you still prefer option A, showcasing critical thinking and the ability to weigh different arguments. To strengthen your position, you're encouraged to support your argument with a specific example that illustrates why you prefer option A. Finally, you conclude by reinforcing your preference, summarizing the benefits of option A and your reasons for choosing it. This structure ensures a well-rounded, thoughtful response that addresses both sides of the comparison while clearly stating and supporting your own position. Next, let's see how to use the template with the following question. There are serious movies that make the audience think, and there are fun movies that amuse and entertain the audience. Which type of movie do you prefer? Why? Give specific reasons for your answer. We will use the template to respond. This response excellently demonstrates how to apply the comparison essay template to answer the question. Let's analyze how it follows the structure. The answer begins by clearly stating the preference. I prefer fun movies that amuse and entertain because this aligns with the template's start with your preference instruction. Next, it elaborates on specific reasons. One reason I prefer entertaining movies is that this follows the elaborate with specific reasons part of the template. The response then provides a contrasting viewpoint. While some people may argue that serious movies are better because, followed by an explanation of why fun movies are still preferred. This perfectly applies the provide a contrasting viewpoint section. The answer supports the argument with an example. For example, the movie Bridesmaids is a hilarious comedy that this fulfills the support with an example requirement. Finally, it concludes by reinforcing the preference. Overall, I find that fun, amusing movies provide a more enjoyable movie-watching experience. This aligns with the templates. Conclude by reinforcing your preference instruction. This response effectively follows the template structure while maintaining a natural flow and language style. It clearly expresses a personal opinion and provides specific reasons and examples to support the argument. This structured approach ensures a comprehensive, well-organized answer that clearly conveys the writer's position on the topic. Next is the second part of the response. The follow-up response demonstrates a more flexible approach to answering the question, which is appropriate given the shorter time constraint of 3 minutes. Let's analyze this response. The answer begins by acknowledging the preference stated in the first part. While I generally prefer fun movies, which provides continuity with the previous response. However, it quickly moves to address the new question directly. I do believe there's a time and place for both serious and entertaining films. The response then briefly explains the value of serious movies. Serious movies can be incredibly valuable when you're in the mood to engage with complex themes or gain new perspectives. This shows the ability to recognize the merits of both types of films. The answer then pivots back to fun movies with, however, when you're looking to unwind or spend quality time with friends and family, a fun movie is often the perfect choice. This statement reinforces the original preference while acknowledging that the choice depends on the situation. By avoiding rigid template structures and focusing on directly answering the question, this response manages to provide a nuanced view in a short amount of time. It demonstrates the ability to adapt to different questions and time constraints while still maintaining a clear and coherent argument. This approach is effective for follow-up questions or shorter writing tasks, as it allows for a more natural flow of ideas while still addressing all aspects of the question. It shows flexibility in thinking and the ability to provide a balanced perspective, which are valuable skills in academic writing and critical thinking. Let's continue with the second template, which also includes upgraded vocabulary. This enhanced version of the DT comparison essay structure template focuses on elevating the vocabulary and phrasing to demonstrate a higher level of language proficiency. Let's break down the key improvements. Starting with preference, the phrase "I have a predilection for" replaces the simpler "I prefer," showcasing more sophisticated vocabulary. Elaborating with reasons, "One compelling reason I prefer" is used instead of "one reason I prefer," adding emphasis and complexity to the sentence structure. Providing a contrasting viewpoint. While some individuals may contend that replaces, while some people may argue that offering a more formal tone. I remain convinced that is used instead of I still believe that, demonstrating a stronger stance. Supporting with an example, for instance, is used instead of for example, and corroborates, replaces, supports, introducing more advanced vocabulary. The addition of elucidate further enhances the language complexity. Concluding, all things considered replaces overall, providing a more formal transition to the conclusion. This vocabulary-enhanced version encourages test takers to use more sophisticated language throughout their essay. It maintains the same clear structure as the original template, but pushes candidates to demonstrate an advanced level of English proficiency. This can potentially lead to higher scores in language use, vocabulary range, and overall writing quality, while ensuring that the essay remains well-organized and addresses all key points of the question. The use of more complex sentence structures and advanced vocabulary allows test takers to showcase their language skills more effectively, which is crucial in the DT exam. In the final part of the video, we'll try using the advanced template to answer the previous question. This final example excellently demonstrates the application of the vocabulary-enhanced template for the main response, while maintaining flexibility in the follow-up answer. Let's analyze both parts. Main response. The answer begins with the enhanced template phrase, I have a predilection for fun movies that amuse and entertain, immediately showcasing advanced vocabulary. It then elaborates with, one compelling reason I prefer entertaining movies is, following the template structure. The response incorporates the contrasting viewpoint as suggested. While some individuals may contend that serious movies are superior because, it then reinforces the original preference using the template's language. The example is introduced with, for instance, and the conclusion begins with all things considered, both adhering to the enhanced template. Throughout the response, advanced vocabulary is used, such as quotidian, contemplate, and illicit, demonstrating a high level of language proficiency. Follow-up response. As in the previous example, the follow-up response doesn't strictly adhere to a template, which is appropriate given the time constraint. However, it still maintains a high level of vocabulary and sentence structure. The answer begins with, while I generally gravitate towards amusing films, acknowledging the previous preference while addressing the new question. It uses sophisticated language throughout, such as thought-provoking and lighthearted cinematic offerings, disposition to grapple with intricate themes, and optimal selection. This approach in the follow-up demonstrates the ability to adapt to different questions and time constraints while still maintaining a high level of language proficiency. It shows flexibility in thinking and the capacity to provide a nuanced perspective, which are valuable skills in academic writing and critical thinking. By combining the structured, vocabulary-enhanced approach in the main response with a more flexible yet still sophisticated style in the follow-up, this example showcases how to effectively tackle both parts of the DT writing task while demonstrating advanced language skills. That's all for today's lesson. Feel free to like, share, or subscribe to our channel for more exam information, preparation methods, and test-taking strategies. See you in the next lesson.